If you've happened upon one of the other cable news networks recently, first of all, tisk tisk. Well, you're probably bombarded with updates on former Trump campaign chair Paul Manafort's federal trial kicked off today. Despite no allegations of Russian collusion, Manafort's facing serious prison time in a case brought by the special counsel Bob Mueller. It's all related to Manafort's work for Russia-friendly Ukrainian political party there that predated his time with the Trump campaign. So he got swept up in this whole deal. Interestingly enough, though, there are now reports that Mueller has referred 3 cases to federal prosecutors in Manhattan involving high-profile lobbyists who also worked on behalf of that same Ukrainian-linked group, without registering, though, as foreign agents. Haven't heard much about that, have you? Could it be that because, well, one of those names is Tony Podesta, super lobbyist in the Democratic Party and brother of John, the chairman of Hillary's failed 2016 campaign? Or that other name, Greg Craig. He's the former White House counsel for Barack Obama. Rejoining us now for reaction, Alan Dershowitz and Sol Wisenberg. Okay, guys, how potentially serious or not is this deal with referring both Podesta and Greg Craig to the Southern District of New York? Greg Craig, full disclosure, worked for my old law firm, Skadden Arps, and they parted ways months back. But let's start with you, Professor Dershowitz. What's going on here?
Well, Greg's a great guy. He lives on Martha's Vineyard with me. I see him periodically over the summer. Full disclosure. Look, this just proves that you never needed a special counsel. They're taking these cases, more and more of them, and referring them to ordinary U.S. Attorney's Office. The Manafort case also could have easily been tried by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Northern Virginia. The other Manafort case by the District of Columbia U.S. Attorney's Office. Why do we need a special counsel? The cases don't involve Russia for the most part. The only cases that involve Russia are cases that'll never be tried at all, the 12 Russians. They're not coming to Disneyland any day soon to be served, and they're not going to be extradited by Vladimir Putin. So we're seeing more and more proof that we never needed a special counsel, that the special counsel will end up filing a report and getting some low-hanging fruit and getting some convictions largely unrelated to what his mandate originally was. I didn't like special counsel when they were appointed to get Bill Clinton. I didn't like them in other cases. I don't like them now. I don't think they're consistent with the principles of democracy.
But similar, Sol.
But same,
it's interesting.
Same,
we're vacuuming up a lot of information about people, and it's going up to the special the Southern District of New York. Same deal with Michael Cohen. It does seem like it's expanding to places that have nothing to do with the original charge.
Well, 2 things in my view. Number one, I think probably if it's really gone to the Southern District, unlike Cohen, where they could say this is just not in our bailiwick, here this was part of the original Manafort thing. But I think probably they're going to decline those cases, and it's just my guess, and that if Mueller declined cases against Democrats, he would get a tremendous amount of criticism for it. So it's easier to send it to the Southern District.
It looks better for Mueller, who's been accused by the president, including in tweets today, of having 17 prosecutors with animus.
Which I don't agree with.
Not all of them have ties to the Democrats.
It's just the president shouldn't be doing that. But here's the other thing. Here's the difference. Right or wrong, Mueller sees Manafort as a key to his Russia conspiracy case. He believes, right or wrong, that Manafort knows something, and Manafort is the key. And that's why he's going after Manafort, and he's clearly going to try.
Didn't Judge Ellis say that today again?
Judge Ellis has said it repeatedly, and he has said, I don't like it, but the system lets him do it. And every prosecutor has done that at some point in their career. So that's the key to Mueller. Manafort is the key. The question will be is if he's convicted, does he become like Susan McDougal and say, nuts to you, I'm still not talking to you, or does he actually decide he'd rather talk than spend if he has any information?
He was there for 5 minutes at the Trump campaign.
But,
I don't know.
You made
4 or 5
Trump's
months.
Worried at all.
4 or 5 months.
I don't think Trump is worried at all about Paul Manafort. I know for a fact he's not worried about it. Dershowitz.
You made a very good point, though. You made a very important point, and that is it's much easier for a U.S. attorney to decline a case. And that's why we should have U.S. attorneys. They're professional prosecutors, and they don't have a target. And they can decline cases if the facts and the law don't warrant prosecution.
Okay, let's
but
advance
it's much
the narrative.
harder for a special counsel to do that.
Okay, let's advance this narrative, though, today. We have this trial kicking off in the Eastern District of New York. And it struck me that much of the time in these opening statements, a lot of the conversation went to Paul Manafort's wealth. And there was one point where they brought in this witness, okay, Maximilian Katzman, former manager of a New York City men's wear store called Alan Couture, claiming Manafort spent more than $929,000 on suits between 2010 and 2014. Judge Ellis then says, cantankerous old Judge Ellis, who I love dearly, all this document shows is that Mr. Manafort had a lavish lifestyle. He had a nice home with a pool and a gazebo. It's not relevant. Of course, he went on to make a really funny comment about the clothes, saying, and look, and he spent a lot on clothes, and he wasn't even that well dressed. I mean, is it a crime now? So it's a crime now to spend a lot of money. Right. Well, we got a lot of people guilty of that in this town, Washington, D.C.
The judge also said, if it doesn't say Men's Warehouse, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, it's like that. Okay, like exactly. I like TJ Maxx. You like Men's Warehouse. When I see that figure,
that's
I'm like, wow.
That's my kind of judge. That's my kind of judge. I'll never be convicted of anything if expensive clothing are a prerequisite. I also go to Men's Warehouse.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about that is that under the law, the law is terrible on showing lavish lifestyle. Under the law, the prosecutors in most courts would be allowed to say that, but Judge Ellis really doesn't like it. And every time he makes those comments, the jury is listening to him, and they know that he doesn't like it.
Yeah, Professor Dershowitz, at one point, they talked about the fact that Manafort used foreign wire transfers to pay for his clothes. And this Maximilian Katzman, who's like the Cato Kalin of the trial so far, he says, well, that's the only customer I've ever had pay for it. Who cares? I mean, again, this is not against the law. I don't know what Manafort did. I think this whole thing, I don't know, my antenna, my spidey senses are going up about this case. I don't know if it's Rick Gates. I don't know if they're afraid to bring Rick Gates in as a prosecution witness. They seem to be hesitant about bringing Gates in, which I find interesting. Professor.
Well, whenever you have a witness who's admitted to lying, it's a very hard job to put him on the stand. And the witness always says, well, I lied in the past. Yes, I know that. But now I'm telling the truth. And then the lawyer for the defense says, well, you expect to benefit from telling the truth, don't you? You expect to get a good deal. So, you know, it's very hard to get a successful conviction based on a flipped witness who might not only be singing but composing. And this judge is very sympathetic to that. He used that term. He said sometimes witnesses who were squeezed not only sing but compose and make the case better in order to get a better deal.
Yeah, but real quick, they talked about doing that early morning raid. We're almost out of time. Early morning raid. Apparently the FBI had a key to his condo. And they said, how'd you have a key? They said, we don't know how he had the key. A little weird.
We don't know. Yeah, that's a
little weird.
I
mean, again, this is my old litigator sense. I'm like, that's interesting.
But listen, Gates is going to testify.
Gates is going to testify. All right, guys, we're going to have you back all the time. This is going to be fascinating. Great panel. Great to see you in person.